I appreciate very much, Brother Mosier. Appreciate the kind words. The only thing that I would add to that is that we'll have the first grandchild on the way, so that just sort of is icing on the cake. And one of these days I'll have a tie. I know he has 6. I don't know that I'll tie, but I could get a tie that has a picture of mine. Certainly good to see each one. This is great to be able to renew friendships, to see old classmates, to see former students, to see other friends and brethren. Certainly always a great honor and pleasure to be able to be at the lectureship. And certainly I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak today. The theme is an excellent one: who is wise? Proverbs 4:7 reads, "Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding." The subject of our particular lesson today is, "But where shall wisdom be found?" from Job 28:12. Really, this theme of the lectureship this week is going to provide fodder for both topical and textual sermons. But the one that we are dealing with now is really topical in a text, as this great chapter tells us about the theme of wisdom and where wisdom cannot be found, where it can be found. Very wonderful chapter in the midst of a wonderful book. As we approach Job 28, we see that having endured the attacks of Satan, Job 1 and 2, having endured, if you will, the attack of his own mind, Job 3, suffering Job had also been having to endure to withstand the attacks of his supposed friends. Chapters 4, 5, and 8, 11, 15, and 18, and 22 and 25 contained 3 rounds of speeches in which Job's friends have attacked him. During the course of these 3 sections, the parts at the beginning and then the part that has all those speeches and Job's responses in it, wisdom is a consistent theme. Wisdom had been used as a tool by the friends with which to attack Job. Perhaps we might even say to bludgeon Job. Job 4:21, 5:13, 11:6 and 12, 15 verses 2 and 8 and 18, and 22:2. It's over and over used as a club on Job. It also was something which had been used by Job to defend himself. Job 6:13, and with which he likewise attacked the friends. Job 12:2 and 13:5 and 17:10. And wisdom was used in these sections to describe God. Job 9:4 and 12 verses 12, 13, and 16. In his last answer to the attacks of Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, Job responded, "How?" Now he's not asking how. He's saying to what a great extent. He's going to answer them sarcastically. "How hast thou helped him that is without power? How savest thou the arm that hath no strength? How hast thou counseled him that hath no wisdom? And how hast thou plentifully declared the thing as it is?" His sarcastic answer demonstrated that they had been of no help. Though in their vanity, surely they thought they had been of great help. In fact, just a little more and we may be able to convert Job, perhaps was their thought. The rest of Job 26, that was verses 2 and 3. The rest of Job 26 anticipates God's speech. He's going to be speaking in chapters 38 through 41. And Job concluded this chapter, "Lo, these are parts of his ways, but how little a portion is heard of him. But the thunder of his power, who can understand?" That word understand tied closely with wisdom. Job 26:14. With that, at least for a chapter, the subject of wisdom and understanding momentarily lapses. It returns in the chapter at hand, Job 28. There, Job will contrast what men could find, verses 1 through 11, with what men could not find, verses 12 through 22, and that which only God could give, verses 23 through 28. Those three divisions serve as our points this morning. We begin with what men could not find, Job 28, 1 through 11. About 5,000 years ago, the ancient law code of the first Pharaoh of the first dynasty of Egypt, Pharaoh Menes, contained the respective values for silver and gold. 1 part of gold is equal to 2.5 parts of silver in value. Now, why is that significant? That's significant because men knew how to find gold and silver, and there was enough of it around that they could establish an appropriate ratio based upon the quantities which were available. Now that implies that there was some measure of time between the discovery of these metals and Menes, perhaps a millennium. Gold and silver over that course of time were found, were treasured, were valued, were used in trade and certainly decoration and things of that nature as well. Gold and silver continued to be found and valued and even published. In the reign of Seti I, around the beginning of the 13th century BC, there was actually a map of gold mines in the eastern Egyptian desert, meaning that men knew exactly where they could go to be able to find that precious metal. We don't know exactly when Job lived. I believe that it was in the patriarchal age, and that's quite reasonable. But Job would write in Job 28:1, "Surely there is a vein for the silver and a place of gold where they find it." So during the patriarchal age, around 2100, maybe a little earlier, maybe a little later BC, around the time of Abraham, Job is sure there is gold out there and there's silver out there, and people know how to find it. Silver and gold were even being refined according to the end of that verse. We read in Genesis 13:2, "And Abram was very rich in cattle and in gold," also living around that time. Men could find silver and gold, and they had. But not only could they find those precious metals, men could find iron and brass. Job wrote, "Iron is taken out of the earth, and brass is molten out of the stone," Job 28:2. We read about those things even before the flood, because we read about Tubal-Cain, who was an instructor of every artificer in brass and iron, Genesis 4:22. Now that brass there may have been any number of materials based upon the Hebrew word that was used, probably copper. But regardless, men had found that metal and many others. In fact, probably most of the metals which could be covered by the word brass. To find many of the ores for these various metals, men had to search diligently. In chapter 28, verse 3, Job wrote, "He, man, setteth an end to darkness, and searcheth out all perfection, the stones of darkness and the shadow of death." This seems to be man's using artificial light to be able to brighten areas which had not seen light before. John Gill wrote, "This is to be understood as the miner that digs for the above metals, who, when he opens a mine, lets in natural light or carries artificial light along with him, and so, in that way, puts an end to the darkness which had reigned before, even from the creation." I would alter his statement just a bit. I would say even from the flood rather than even from creation, but the idea is a sound one. They would go to these areas that men had not been, where light had not shone, and they would shine their lights. Not only did they have to seek very diligently to find these metals, they had to take great risks. Verse 4, the flood breaketh out from the inhabitant, even the waters forgotten of the foot. They are dried up, they are gone away from men. Now the King James seems to picture there the danger of hidden volumes of water, which as soon as the wrong wall was breached, those waters could rush in and flood the tunnels and so be hazardous. John Gill wrote, they are not discouraged, but by means of engines, pumps, and buckets, and such like things, draw up the waters and clear the minds of them. In other words, they're endangered by those waters, but the ingenuity of man has a way just to pump the water back out. The American Standard has a little different wording there. Pictures this not as necessarily being a dangerous area, but a secluded area. Although men yet hung dangling perilously, they hang afar from men, they swing to and fro. That's how the American Standard translated that. Haley said this referred either to their descending and ascending in and out of the mines by rope or basket, or by their swinging to and fro on scaffolds or supported by ropes in the mine. Still, men could find those ores, and men could be industrious, and they could draw the riches out of those areas. Back in civilization, men grew the crops which provided their bread. Verse 5, as for the earth, out of it cometh bread, and under it is turned up, as it were, fire. Now that verse seems a little out of place because we've gone from the inside of the mountains, from the caves, from the mines, to the surface where agriculture is taking place. But the same earth which provided this metal provided the food. And men had taken advantage of both resources. We understand providentially so. As for the turning up by fire, Haley saw this as the consuming fervor with which men would work. I can't help but wonder, appreciating the scientific foreknowledge of the Bible, if this isn't a reference to the turning over of the convection currents in the molten mantle beneath the earth's crust, with the geologic forces which were let loose in the flood being shown at work, Genesis 7:11. Regardless, the stones of it are the place of sapphires, and the dust, it hath dust of gold. Men could even find these valuable gems and gold dust in such places. Men had the ability to go places and to do things which even the strongest of the animal kingdom could not. Job wrote in verses 7 and 8, there is a path which no fowl knoweth, and which the vulture's eye hath not seen. The lion's whelps have not trodden it, nor the fierce lion passed by it. Haley speaks regarding the migratory nature of the fowl, but even they would not go so far as men had. In fact, the fowl did not even know the way that men had gone. And neither could the falcon with his great eyesight, the American Standard mentions the falcon, neither could the falcon with his great eyesight see as far as men had gone. Even the lions, afraid of nothing, had not so ventured the lengths that man had. And their cubs, who, if you saw The Lion King, you understand they can wander off. Their cubs had not even wandered that far away. Observe the means men used to find these things. Verses 9 through 11. He putteth forth his hand upon the rock. He overturneth the mountains by the roots. He cutteth out rivers among the rocks, and his eye seeth every precious thing. He bindeth the floods from overflowing, and the thing that is hid bringeth he forth to light. The flinty rock men broke away. The mountains men overturned. This seems to be more than mere tunneling. This seems like it may have been an early strip mining. We know that men could cut rivers or channels, the American Standard said, passages, Haley said, through the rocks as necessary, whatever it took to find every precious thing. Men would even dam the waters that they trickle not, American Standard. Haley pictures this as trickling not where the water would seep into the mine. However, men in ancient times had the ability to dam and even to build canals off of rivers like the Tigris and Euphrates. So there was great ability in men. Men had always been very industrious, and they would do whatever was required in order to find that which was hidden from them. What could men find? Men could find silver, gold, iron, brass, bread, sapphires, and so much more that's not mentioned here. But men could not find everything. Ralph Smith wrote, "Man's achievements in science are to be applauded. This fact is true of our age more than any other." He was writing half a century ago, by the way. Imagine the scientific advances which have been made during this last 50 plus years. He said, "But science has not," and speaking in 2023, it still has not, "science has not solved all of modern man's problems, and it cannot do so. Simply not possible." Men, with all of their advancements, could not find everything. This takes us to verses 12 through 22. We have seen what men could not find. What about that which men could find? Now Job picks up where he had left off there at the end of chapter 26. He says, "But where shall wisdom be found? And where is the place of understanding?" Remember, understanding is how chapter 26 had ended. That question is going to be reframed in verse 20, and there we're going to have not necessarily a where, but a whence. From where, or maybe even from whom, whence then cometh wisdom, and where is the place of understanding? There's going to be a contrast. Men could find all of these valuable, albeit merely physical, things. But that which is better, wisdom, cannot be so in that manner found. Note that wisdom is better. Men could find the other things which were hidden from the rest of creation, but they could not find that which was better. Regarding its being better, wisdom was a commodity far rarer and far more valuable and far better than those that men could find. Solomon wrote, Proverbs 16:16, "How much better is it to get wisdom than gold, and to get understanding rather to be chosen than silver." He would elaborate on the value of wisdom, personified as she in Proverbs 3, verses 14 and 15. Might note also Proverbs 8:11. But in Proverbs 3, 14 and 15, "For the merchandise of it is better than the merchandise of silver, and the gain thereof than of fine gold. She," wisdom, "is more precious," Jodati says this word carries the idea of valuable, "than rubies. And all the things thou canst desire are not to be compared unto her." Neither did men even know its value, nor did wisdom exist in the realm in which men could look. Job wrote, Job 28:13, "Man knoweth not the price thereof, neither is it found in the land of the living." How did that verse begin? Man knoweth not. This does not say that the price of wisdom was unknowable, but this says that man knows it not. There is another with the capital A Who, with a capital W, knows where wisdom is? Who, with a capital W, transcends this realm? But not even this realm is the area that doesn't know wisdom, because in verse 14, Job spoke about what would be our next realm after this life, the Hadean realm. The depth say, not yet. We'll get to that one in just a moment. But Job 28:14, this realm testified that wisdom is not here, for the depth saith it is not in me, and the sea saith it is not on me. Got ahead of myself. That'll be just a few minutes. So neither where the minerals were formed and hidden, nor where the waters lay, could identify the source of wisdom, the place of wisdom. Perhaps if men could not find wisdom, men could trade for it. Men could buy it, procure it in some other way. No, men couldn't even trade for it. If we go to verses 15 through 19, it cannot be gotten for gold. You're not going to be able to trade for it. Neither shall it be weighed for the price thereof. It cannot be valued with the gold of Ophir, with the precious onyx or the sapphire. The gold and the crystal cannot equal it, and the exchange of it shall not be for jewels of fine gold. No mention shall be made of coral or of pearls, for the price of wisdom is above rubies. The topaz of Ethiopia shall not equal it, neither shall it be valued with pure gold. Yesterday, the price of gold was $1,999, no cents per ounce. It's pretty expensive. But even at that price, there's not enough gold to buy wisdom. If gold be not enough, then trading silver for wisdom at yesterday's price of $23.33 an ounce, that's going to be completely futile. Even the highest quality gold from Ophir could not be traded for wisdom. The precious onyx, which polished may be as much as $2,500 per gram, and the sapphire may reach $1,200 per carat. But wisdom is still in another category, would not even be traded for them. Muscovite, a rare form of crystal, may be up to $35,000 per carat, but it's not of sufficient value. The corals and the pearls and the rubies, a little side note in Proverbs 31:10, the virtuous woman there, her price is far above rubies. But the corals, the pearls, the rubies, maybe even 2-3 times more valuable than the muscovite, still fall well short of wisdom. A few $100s can buy you a pretty Ethiopian topaz ring, but cannot buy you wisdom. It may be noted that while men have figured out how to remove the impurities from gold, that section that we just read ended. That can't be traded for it either. Not even the purest of gold. Men could find all of these valuable commodities, but could not, of their own industry, find wisdom. Ralph Smith wrote, "Some men think that a way can be found to get anything one desires. If it cannot be mined or manufactured, it can be obtained either by manipulation or money." That's the way of men. How much is it going to cost me? What am I going to have to do for it? Job asked in verse 20, "Whence cometh wisdom, and where is the place of understanding?" In answering, Job said it could not be found in this realm, seeing it is hid from the eyes of all living and kept close from the fowls of the air. Verse 21. And it could not even be found in the next, in the realm of death. Verse 22, destruction and death say, "We have heard the fame," or "we have heard a rumor," the American Standard says, "thereof with our ears." You know, we've heard of that thing called wisdom, but we don't know exactly where it is. It's not here. Not even in the grave was wisdom to be found. Wayne Jackson simply wrote, "It is hid from the living and the dead." That's because wisdom is what only God can give. Verses 23 through 28. Only God could know where wisdom could be found. Job wrote, God. Macbeth tells us that the word God there is emphatic. God understandeth the way thereof, and he knoweth the place thereof. Verse 23. God's omniscience may be seen here. That's what Wayne Jackson suggested. But I think it's more likely a number of other things. His exclusivity, His majesty, His transcendence. God understandeth the way thereof, not God understandeth the way thereof. Job was not alone in recognizing that the source for wisdom was a divine one. Solomon, who personally had received wisdom from God at 1 Kings 3, verses 5 through 12, would write that wisdom could be found, but that God was the source. Proverbs 2, 1 through 7. My son, if thou wilt receive my words and hide my commandments with thee, so that thou incline thine ear unto wisdom and apply thine heart unto understanding, yea, if thou criest after knowledge and liftest up thy voice for understanding, if thou seekest her, again, wisdom personified, as silver, and searchest for her as for hidden treasures, then shalt thou understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God. For the Lord giveth wisdom. Out of His mouth cometh knowledge and understanding. He layeth up sound wisdom for the righteous. James would write, if any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, that giveth to all men liberally, and upbraideth not, and it shall be given him. James 1:5. Paul wrote to Timothy, and that from a child thou hast known the holy scriptures, which are able to make thee wise unto salvation through faith which is in Christ Jesus. All scripture is given by inspiration of God, and is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness, that the man of God may be perfect, thoroughly furnished. We're going to come back there. Thoroughly furnished unto all good works. Thoroughly furnished. Could we insert the idea thoroughly furnished with wisdom unto all good works? God is its source, and this is His book. Job then wrote of the use of wisdom in God's controlling nature and in His originally setting forth the order found in nature. Verses 24 through 26. For He, God, looketh to the ends of the earth, and seeth under the whole heaven, to make the weight for the winds, and He weigheth the waters by measure. When He made a decree for the rain, and a way for the lightning of the thunder, then did He see it, and declare it. He prepared it, yea, and searched it out. Smith wrote, man is limited in power. Only God can create and control the universe. There is then a type and dimension of wisdom which belongs only to God. Well, that's the source. There certainly is a dimension and a type of wisdom belonging only to Him. He is the fountain from which wisdom comes. God looks to and sees every bit of creation, possibly seeing that the winds need a little extra velocity. Smith used that term. God adds to their weight. Might note also Job 26, verse 8. Maybe double checking the specific gravity of the seas. God weighs the water. Could note also Isaiah 40, verse 12. Perhaps when God accomplished His great creation acts, borrowing a term from Homer Haley, we could compare Job 28:27 with Genesis 1:31. God told the rains when to fall, told the lightning where to go, Job 38, verses 25 through 28. By his wisdom, God created and controls the elements. Exclusive, majestic, transcendent. It's how we described God just a moment ago, as evidenced in those verses. Well, we could add another word. Exclusive, majestic, transcendent, yet condescending. Verse 28, and unto man he said, behold, the fear of the Lord, that is wisdom, and to depart from evil is understanding. God cares enough about man. The Creator cares enough about the created that he speaks to man. 1 Corinthians 2, 9 through 13. Job's friends had offered their wise counsel, but Job knew that only the wisdom of the Lord could be effectual. It may be that the testimony and commendation of Job by God, Job 1, verses 1 and 8, Job 2, verse 3, serves as evidence that Job's fear of the Lord was Job's having wisdom. He was above the need of the friend's help, for he was righteous. Reading Job 28:28 calls to mind passages like Micah 6:8 and Ecclesiastes 12:13, and what Solomon wrote in Proverbs 2, verses 10 through 12. When wisdom entereth the heart, and knowledge is pleasant unto thy soul, discretion shall preserve thee, understanding shall keep thee, to deliver thee from the way of the evil man, from the man that speaketh froward things. Those who've had me in the Proverbs class know that when we see the word froward, we can associate the idea of perverse, speaketh perverse things. We're in the year 2023. And even in our year, men have made great advances. Men can search and find many things in this life, but men cannot find wisdom, because only God can give it. We've seen those three things this morning from chapter 28, verses 1 through 11, 12 through 22, and 23 through 28. We'll close with the admonition of Solomon, Proverbs 4, verses 5, 6, 8, and 9. Get wisdom, get understanding. Forget it not, neither decline from the words of my mouth. Forsake her not, and she shall preserve thee. Love her, and she shall keep thee. Exalt her, and she shall promote thee. She shall bring thee to honor when thou dost embrace her. She shall give to thine head an ornament of grace, a crown of glory shall she deliver to thee.